overall. Ron.
Okay. View. I am here to talk about the money that we have accumulated in District 5890 Charities account, which is a 501c3 the district established, I think, back in 1994, somewhere around there, close enough. And it was a vehicle set up to help clubs that did not have its own foundation or to specifically handle if we had a disaster or issues in our own community, in our own district, to be able to facilitate a way for those outside of the area to contribute money to when we were in need. So we have a board that serves on that charities account, but District Governor Bill, on his way to Mexico, called and asked if I would chair a committee to work on the distribution account. It has got close to $80,000. No, 70.
It is now at 130,000.
Okay, well, it's now at 130,000. Yay! That's more money for more projects. So that was the one thing I forgot to do, is to call Jackie Barnwell and get the latest total. So we established a grant committee, and this is the individuals that have agreed to do the process. We, of course, have our district governor-elect Carmen, our district governor-elect nominee Terry, Gillen, Alan Brevard from the Rotary Club of Cypress Fairbank, Corbett Parker, who is in the back of the room, from the Rotary Club of Houston Skyline, Rick Olson, who is the current president of the Rotary Club of Houston, and Vicki Britton, who is also a member of the Club of Houston Skyline. Those will be the individuals that will be, it's very similar to how the district does the district grant process to divide up the DDF. The application is a little bit different. I have 50 applications with me tonight that I ran off at my office before I left today. So if you want to take a hard copy, you're more than welcome to do so. It is also on the district website. So I just want to kind of go over how the process is going to work and make sure you don't have any questions. It's a pretty, in my opinion, simple application. It's very similar to the grant application used for the DDF. That was my starting point. So, and stop me, you can interrupt me at any time. So the applicant for the money must be a Rotary Club. I think that's self-evident, but we actually had an outside charity coming that account, because once people or nonprofits hear that there's money somewhere, they tend to try to get access to that money. The club must be located within the confines of District 5890. The club has to be current on its district and Rotary International dues, and it must be current on its Rotary Foundation reporting requirements. So if you're needing something missing from one of your grant applications prior, make sure you get that in so you don't have a problem in that area. The difference with the DDF is that this project must occur within the confines of district, and it must be a project that is specifically related to Hurricane Harvey relief or recovery. So we're not looking at, if you just did a project for a district grant that is for a nonprofit, that has nothing to do with district recovery efforts for Harvey, that is not going to be the type of project that's going to qualify for this. Stuff that's going to help with relief and recovery from Harvey. Grant application must be signed by the club president. Nothing earth-shattering so far. Rotarian must be listed who will provide oversight and management of the project funds for the entire duration of receiving the funds. Pretty simple. It doesn't have to be the club president. It can be, but I call it the responsible adult rule. We want responsible adults somewhere that we can talk to if for some reason you don't turn in what you need to turn in. The Rotary Club must provide some sort of funding for the project. Notice, it's not a 50-50. It's not, you give 2,000, we'll give 2,000. It is, if you have a great project ideal and your club can only come up with $500, but it's we're willing to consider that. One of the reasons why this is working different is that the Rotary clubs, for the most part, or hopefully, had already passed their budget before July 1st. Harvey hit at the end of August. So you might have already designated your spending and your charitable giving for your fundraising. So we don't want to harm a club because they don't have the flexibility in their budget or their charitable giving, and we don't want to harm other planned projects for Hurricane Harvey relief. So hopefully that will help those clubs eliminate those issues about trying to do additional fundraising, which we also recognize is a little trying right now because so many people in this area have been personally devastated, and fundraising right now is at a high demand and need. We really are encouraged the clubs to partner with other Rotary clubs. It can be within our district or outside of our district. This is a great time if you have a Rotarian that have moved into the district from another part of the United States or another part of the world. A lot of, I know, our outside Rotary club donations have come from initial home clubs of Rotarians that joined. They had a connection. They got the call. Oh my gosh, we're seeing what's happening on TV. This is awful. How can we help? Well, our club said, hey, we have a foundation, whatever donation. This is a big one. The funds cannot be used for overhead or operational expenses of another 501c3. Again, right now, a lot of people's fundraising efforts are down. A lot of organizations had fundraisers set in September that they've had to cancel. We're not going to supplant those operational costs. It has to be for a real project. For example, say your local area assistant needs ministry, don't run on the blanket check. Go fill the meat freezer. Go buy the socks. Go buy the underwear. Go buy the toiletry kit. Instead of them, because we cannot necessarily ensure that that money is not going to pay salary. So Rotary is about projects, not necessarily just blanket checks. The funds have to be used entirely on projects that you've applied for. Some of this is pretty obvious, but still needs to be said. And then we're not going to be used for reimbursing funds that have already been expended from the club. So these are kind of projects. Is there any questions? Wayne.
If one's already been submitted, what is the approximate turnaround so we can know how to plan a project?
Okay, so Ms. Wayne and Sci Fair submitted a project. So our deadline is, I hate those softball kind of questions, but good answer. Our deadline, it was going to be 2 weeks from tonight, but that's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, so I'm going to push that by 3 weeks. I am aware of that, and we're going to talk to you about. I don't want to really start giving money out until that deadline, but and it's not a significant amount of money. So I'm going to send an email out to the committee, and I'm being full disclosure to everybody here and on the internet that we're not going to consider the grants really until 3 weeks from tonight. But we're probably going to go ahead and look at that one because it's an elderly lady who, I forget her background, but it's a great background, and it's for a new AC heating unit. She has no resources to get it, and they've gotten that unit at cost. So we're very aware of that. Yes, Corbett.
What's the maximum amount an individual club can get project, and what if a club partners with another club? Can they get even more?
There's no maximum amount. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. We've had this conversation with West U, but it's going to be fair to all concerned. So no, a club's not going to get all $130,000. This is set up to ultimately go to the DAF, which is Vicki's going to talk about. We're working as a So this is one way, there's a little bit more in this application than the normal district grant model. Like, we're not gonna take the air conditioning unit to the DAF, but there's some other things we're working on with some clubs. There's a gentleman in the Tomball Club that works with the YMCA, and there's 17 YMCAs represented in 17 different Rotary clubs, 890. They're working on a project with trying to do a joint project with all 17 of those YMCAs, and including my Rotary Club. And I've given them some suggestions on some projects that they're going to come, and I believe that we're working on what Vicky's going to talk about a little bit with the mental health project that Sanjay spoke about, that's a great way to facilitate some of those trainers in through the YMCA. So that might be something that we can go all the way up to the DAF and get. There's several pots of money. There's the 15,000 in the DDF. There's the 130 roughly thousand in District 5890 charities. There's money from the clubs, and then there's money at the District Advised Fund at the Rotary. So I don't want to say one way or the other, because I might have 3 clubs that come looking for money. Right? So we might give a club that much money, because we don't know until we get the grant application in 3 weeks.
Will clubs get more money if they partner with other clubs?
Yes, because of course, that's if more clubs coming in together. So right, that question applies to both the district grant process and the DAF. Like I said, this was set up looking at the DAF criteria, and I think he's going to go into more. Answers will be answered there. It's still kind of a fluid process. I know, like, the Skyline is wanting a good chunk of money. Westview is, Katie is, but so before I wrap it up and pass it off to Vicki, one of the things that we had the clubs up here represented on things that the clubs are already doing is if you want to access that and you want to do something as a club, you don't know what to do, well, you heard of some examples and get together with those gentlemen and me, lady, as to examples and ideals to help you if you've never gone through a needs assessment in your community. One Collier has done needs assessments all over the world. Vicky's done needs assessment all over the world. Wayne's done needs assessment all over the world. Bill Davis has done needs assessment all over the world. There are experts in this area that can help you figure out how to do that in your own community.
So Rhonda, how soon after the 20th?
I'm hoping to get my committee together within the next couple of days. After that, we'll do a go-to meeting, so we don't have to actually. That'll help. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't think of a better example of people of action than Rhonda. And when Wally made some comment about the lines were blurred as to who was doing what, I think in part because what Rhonda and I have discovered is that we really do share very much the same view of the process and what we've placed value on in terms of how we should do this. So I think you're going to see with the 2 funds that you're going to see that we work really together and we'll work with you together as well. So that's a benefit not only to the club, but the whole district as well. So first of all, let me say that every bit of this is on the website. There is a new letter from our district governor that got posted just in the last couple of days. And he references that everything is on the website. And on the left-hand side of the website, there's a little link that says Rotary Harvey, Disaster Recovery Harvey, I think is what it says, right? If you click on that, then it's going to open up 5 or 6 other things, including every form that you could possibly need and the information about the criteria for both district charities, 5890, and the donor advised fund. So no one is disadvantaged. If you're in the viewing audience watching this, or if you're here, everybody has equal access to that information. We're open for business, is what I'm trying to say. From the get-go, let me say that the mindset about the donor advised fund, and John here, Collier and I both have had experience from the applicant side working with the donor advised fund that was established for Haiti after the earthquake. We got probably one of the largest grants that was given to anybody out of that fund. So we've been on both sides of the process, and we know firsthand. And from the beginning, the intent of the donor advised fund folks, when they set up the criteria and the application form, their intent has always been that this would not be a cumbersome process. They did not want to create a grant process that mirrored global grants or mirrored any of the other grants that you have any experience applying for, where you've got to go through, well, we all know what you have to go through to get those grants, right? This process is not at all like that. It's a very simple form to apply, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So there are 5 districts that were impacted by Harvey, right? So this particular donor advised fund is called number 608, I think is the number. And it's to be shared, or for the benefit of all 5 districts. All 5 districts were not equally impacted. I would say that probably 2 of them were probably impacted the most, with the third being, a third one. The last 2 probably, less so. Each delegate has each district has one delegate on the task force. Now, the difference between the donor advised fund task force is I don't chair that. I'm a delegate on that task force, right? Each district is going to have a delegate. Greg Pod is serving as the chair of that committee, but with him are 3 other account holders, important people who've served in roles at Rotary International. Ultimately, they hold the card, all right? The account holders are not going to discuss the projects. They're not going to decide they're not going to be making recommendations about which projects get funded, but the due diligence and the questions that have to be asked, it's their obligation to see to it that the task force does their job. And then I think the way it's set up is 3 out of the 4 of those account holders will have to sign off on whatever Greg Pod recommends after the task force makes their decision. Does that help? All right, so the criteria for the donor advised fund. When you look on the website, and I'm sorry I don't have a slide for it, but there is a form that actually describes in a narrative what the criteria is. And the very first paragraph, you'll go down to the most important thing you're going to see in that is probably the last 2 or 3 sentences. The form and the criteria that was initially submitted to us was identical to the one that was used in Haiti, was identical to the one that has been used for any other donor advised fund after a disaster where they've had one, right? When I looked at what the stuff was going to be used for, it was obvious to me that they were using the Haiti form because it used language that was really more applicable to Haiti than to here. So I very quietly made with Bill Palco's permission, made a recommendation to Greg Pod, and they accepted our recommendation. So if you look at that form now, you're going to see about 8 or 10 examples of projects that it will cover. What I did was I put down anything that conceivably fit within the realm of what we were going to need in Houston after Harvey, right? So and they accepted it. So it's in the form now. So it's hard for me to imagine that there could be anything, any club activity that you would want to do that really wouldn't fit within the basic criteria of what they said they'd pay for. Now, as far as the other criteria, their wording says local clubs must be involved when possible, and that's because for international projects, sometimes that doesn't make sense. But in our case, I cannot imagine that we would even entertain a project that wasn't sponsored by a Rotary Club. Technically, the minimum project application request is for $5,000. The maximum is $100,000. I don't know if there's going to be any project that gets $100,000. And they won't speak to it now. I wish I could give you a definitive answer. My gut instincts tells me highly unlikely, because I don't think that the amount of money in the fund is enough. It really wouldn't be fair. I mean, the last conversation I had with Greg Pod, there was right at $500,000 in this fund. Now, that was 2 weeks ago, and it very well could grow, because he told me that it's continuing to grow. So it's very possible that it's much bigger now. But that's what it was about 2 weeks ago. Again, matching funds are favored, but not necessarily at 1-to-1. And then just in a little bit, we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. The Donor Advised Fund recommends that local and international clubs partner where possible for the same reason that they do with global grants. They want to promote Rotary relationships. So if your clubs have international partners, or you have partner clubs in other cities, like Skyline has the San Francisco club that has sort of, I don't know how that happened, but it did, and they're our new best friend, right? And so if you've got those kinds of relationships with another club, they encourage it, and the Donor Advised Fund wants to see that. So it's not a requirement, it's just encouraged. All right, so the task force will review all the grants from all 5 districts. Unlike the district charities account, where there's a deadline, where Rhonda has said, here's the date. She's made the date public, and except for the one grant request that she's going to entertain for disaster aid that Wayne submitted, they will wait until all clubs have a chance to submit their grants, right? That same process is not being set forth. I have suggested it, we've suggested it, but he doesn't want to do that. So all I can say is, it's open for business. And that's, I don't know how that's good. I know that once we start talking, I'm sure it will be a fair process to everyone. But at this time, I can't say to you, here's the date in which we're going to start considering them. He has basically said we're open for business. As soon as we get grant requests, I'll get them before the task force to start reviewing. As I said, it needs 3 out of the 4 account holders to approve. I don't think the task force is going to meet in person. I think we'll have go, like Rhonda suggested, it'll either be Voice or Skype or some other kind of system that allows us to have a face meeting of some sort. The Donor Advised Fund will issue projects funding by phases. I know that's how it worked for John and I when we had the big project that we did with Haiti. It was a big amount of funding we got, but they asked us to designate what did we need for this time frame. And we got that amount of money. And as soon as we sent them a very simple report, well, then we got the next amount of money for the next phase. And so that's the way it's going to work for this as well. I suppose it's possible, by the way, that some of the funding from the Donor Advised Fund won't be big enough that it has to be in phases. That it might be small enough that it could be all at one point. Projects can originate locally or internationally. I mean, it's possible that a club in India could decide they want to do a project for Harvey relief and apply through the donor advice fund. That's what we did, right? We applied, although we did it in partnership with local clubs in Haiti. And I can't imagine that a club would, it would be odd that they would submit a project without wanting to work with a local club, but technically they could do it. They have just simply said that one of their criteria is they'd love to see projects that enhance the economy. The example I would give of that, particularly if you were in a, like Haiti, for instance, they don't manufacture a lot, so therefore we were having to import things, right? But to the extent that a project can buy whatever is needed for that project locally, that's what the DAF means by they want the economy to be enhanced. They want you to support the local economy if you have to buy things or whatever as part of your project. All applications are submitted to Greg Pod, but before you do, they have to be approved by your club and our process here locally, so that by the time it gets to them, they know that it's already gone through the process. If that makes any sense. So now, oops, I missed leverage. All right, I missed that one, I guess, but. So leverage funds. What do we really mean? You know, I want to give examples of what we mean by that beyond just accessing funds. So at a very simple level, it means, first of all, if you're going to ask for money from either of these funds, then your club should be putting something into it, right? And it's been very clear that that needs to be money going forward, not money that you already spent. In other words, you don't get credit technically for what you've already invested in Harvey. Having said that, like Rhonda has said, we don't want to penalize clubs, and so I would encourage you in your grant request to be forthcoming about what you've already done and invested. In a soft way, I think you might get credit for it. It's just that it can't go into a match, if that means anything. In terms of when we're talking about leveraging dollars and what we'd like to see, because we know that you have already been out there spending in the community, we know that you also have the capacity to perhaps get funding from partners that you're working with. And we want you to report that. So whether that funding for that project is coming directly from your club or whether it's coming from the partner organization that you might be working with who's going to contribute to the project, that's okay too. We want to hear that. That's all part of the leverage process. Foundations the mega foundations, right? The mega funds. We know that it's unlikely that Rotary clubs are going to apply for those funds directly. It's possible that some of you are sophisticated enough to do that, but it's highly unlikely. However, many of you are working with partner organizations that are set up to apply for those mega funds, right? So therefore, if those organizations are applying to the mega funds, and that's connected to the work that you're going to be doing, we want you to report that. We like that because what we know is if you're getting your partner organizations are getting those big dollars from the mega funds, well then that's a bigger project that Rotary can be connected to than if we just stay within ourselves and only get our funding for projects that we can fund ourselves. We would want you to report cash and in-kind resources. There's a value to what you're giving to a project that might be resources in kind. We want to recognize that, report that, in your financial piece of your project. The forms, if you haven't seen them, here's the donor advised form, donor advised fund. It is so simple that, but I don't want that to deceive you. This is really, this form is, when you look on the website, it's going to be labeled request form, right? If you'll also see, there's something that we put on the website that I'm calling the Donor Advised Fund Supplement. That was not provided to us by the Donor Advised Fund. I just created that form. It's really the exact same form that Rhonda's using for charities, right? So you're going to do one to charities where you've already got it filled out anyway. The reason that I did that is John and I had the experience with the Donor Advised Fund, that if you think this is all the information that they want to know, well, it's not. So if you just submit this, they're not going to know enough about your project to really process it. And what John and I experienced is that some people are sophisticated enough to know what to put into a proposal. But I didn't want to, for clubs who didn't know what information needed to be included, we wanted to make it easier for you. But again, we did not want to create a process that was cumbersome and as involved as what you would normally expect with Rotary grants. The application that we're calling the Donor Advised Fund Supplement for District 5890, I would like to suggest to you that you use that when you submit something for the Donor Advised Fund. If you don't want to use this form and you have a grant proposal that has the same or similar information, that's okay. I'm not fixated on the form. It's just that I knew that if we don't submit this information to the Donor Advised Fund, all they're going to do is just look at your grant request and go, well, yeah, we would be interested in that, but you're going to have to give us more information. So why waste time with that? Let's just give it to them up front. This way, our grant requests that are going to the Donor Advised Fund, I think will be better documented and stronger from the get-go. That's my hope. So now, projects, right? How do we do that? And how do we talk to each other about it? You've heard about some ideas today. I can tell you with the behavioral health project, that project is ready to go. When I say it's ready to go, it's ready to go. All we need are partners and to identify how much money we're going to have. The project is written. The grant request can be put together we're going to finish that up tomorrow. All we need for it are others that want to be a part of it. And I really hope y'all will look at it, because that project is not just about money. It's also about bringing the people and your partner organizations to the table. This is going to be a way that you can actually do a favor for the people that you work with in your club and the partner organizations, schools and churches in your neighborhood, and any of the organizations that you work with through VOAD, anybody. Here's an opportunity for us to say, look, we're going to nominate you and let you get to do this amazing training. And so I hope you will look at it. I know that John Collier's, I think a couple of your projects are going to be similar. They're going to be ready to go, where if clubs want to do what John is doing and you want to join them, well then, and you don't have your own ideas for what you want to do, well, there you go. Or you could take the ideas and you could take those ideas and say, well, let's take that to my neighborhood, right? It can be replicated. So one of the things we wanted to do was develop those kinds of projects that are well thought out, that really fit into what we call sustainable development, so that even if it was developed for an area that's not the area of town that you want to work in, you could take those ideas and you could replicate it for your neighborhood. Does that make sense? Anyway, so I don't know if you have any more questions for either one of us. How are we doing on time? I'm happy to answer them. I will just say that my ability to answer questions about the Donor Advised Fund is it's going to have to be a little fluid, because we haven't convened and we haven't had a grant submitted. So until it's tested out, I'm anxious to test it out.
So based on your experience from Haiti, I presume go in, we set up designated. Typically how that process works, that we've got some club that manages that account and is responsible for the record keeping, kind of the traditional process that we have in place already with the global grants. Similar?
It is, that's how we did it. That's how we did it. We chose in our Haiti project to put the bank account in Texas, and we paid for everything, right? So it's a little unique. We didn't put the account in Haiti for them to pay. We wrote the checks as they, and it was big checks, right? So when we were paying out for the different project activities, it wasn't like we were writing a bunch of little tiny checks. We probably over the course of the project wrote 10 checks, John?
More than that.
Maybe, I can't remember, but they were big amounts, right? So in our case, though, it's in our own community, so we're in control of the funds, right? But yes, yeah. But it's simple. It's really not, it wasn't complicated for us to manage. Either the submission or the management of that grant was not complicated for us at all. And in the reporting, the level of reporting that is required, they're going to expect it. But again, it's more summaries, and they want documented examples, and they're going to want pictures for people of action. And I know that Eric Liu is wanting to collect people of action stories, right? So there will be reports you have to do for both grants, but I don't think in either, for the amount of money that you might be able to get, I don't think either one of them are going to require the level of reporting that we've often had to do for our global grants.
Vicki, let me jump in just for a second. I realize that some of the people who are seeing this may not be seeing it today. They may be seeing it in the near future. For one of those people, she is contactable. Rhonda is contactable. And again, on Rotary5890.org, on the left-hand column is the link to the Harvey thing, which is a link to the forms and all of these names. And you can find these people, and they'll be glad to talk to you because you may have questions. Yes, Linda?
I let people know to scroll all the way down because I failed to do that. I went, well, I'm not seeing that form, whatever form it was.
It's under site pages on the left hand side. And you're right, and there's several different things, and it can be confusing in some of the names of the pages, especially you're saying like the supplement form.
Someone asked me earlier, were we going to be meeting to discuss projects? Well, we could. I'm going to throw that out, and what I'm actually going to suggest is this. I think that if you have a project, and I'm inviting other clubs, we just put the ones out there that we could pull together and that we know about, right? But that doesn't mean that this is everything that's being done in the district. We know that many people that are listening to this all clubs have got projects that they're going to want to say, hey, come hear about what I've got that you might want to be a part of. I really feel like it would be important for there to be a forum that we can make that information known to everyone. So I suppose if Rhonda and I could be the collector of the ideas, if you've got projects and they're not ready to submit to the donor advised fund, but you've got the descriptions written, just like the one that was handed out for you tonight on behavioral health. If you've got it in that format and you want to send those to us and you want us to, we'll find a way through whether it's Rebecca or the website to make it known to other clubs that there's projects out there for the taking if people want to get. The other thing is I think that I suppose at some level, if you are leading a project, you're going to have to be a cheerleader for getting people to join your club, right? So, I mean, I know of no other way to do it than that's what you gotta do.
No, Vicky's right. And again, if you're watching this, whenever you're watching this, ask questions. Bill, you had the situation, what if you got a chunk of change from another Rotary club?
Yeah, the Rotary Club of Steamboat Springs raised gift to the Elbow Club.
$27,000 raised from a Colorado club to be given to a District 5890 club.
We'll take it.
That can be used, correct, Vicki?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're asking, the question is, are you offering that money to somebody, or are you saying how?
Is there matching money available?
What I'm saying is, okay, when you use the word matching, that implies a ratio that is set. There is no set ratio. What I am saying, what Ron and I are both saying, and what I'm sure the Donor Advised Fund is saying too, is that the more money that you can bring to the project, no matter where it's coming from, right? It could come from a variety of sources. It might come from a Rotary Club outside of here. Maybe your contribution is the smallest amount. On the acknowledged, our budgets were already spent, right? So no matter where it comes from, whether it's coming from partner organizations, other Rotary organizations, we want you to show that in the financials as a contribution. And all of that will be taken into consideration, in my opinion, in what's then going to be advocated for you to get.
Okay, so it sounds to me to apply for both of these.
The question was, should you apply for both?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes.
And Ron just has a time. The Donor Advised Fund doesn't.
That is correct.
3 weeks ago.
You asked whether the Donor Advised Fund had a submission date. Yes, I've asked the question every which way I could ask it of the chair. Bill knows that. I've asked it directly and
It doesn't have a
indirectly.
deadline. It doesn't have a deadline. It's open for submission now.
Right.
Okay. So I should tell the club, there's urgency. You should do yours too.
And I don't know, you can make the other argument.
When the money's gone, the
You can
money's
make the
gone.
other
When the money's
argument.
gone, the money's gone.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The money's gone, the money's gone.
So oftentimes what will happen so the Greater Houston Community Foundation is doing it in stages, and they call it round 1, 2, and 3. Round 1, nobody even got a chance to apply for it. They knew they wanted to give it to immediate responders. Round 2 was a very short time fuse. They put it out there, but they told you don't even bother to apply if you can't spend it in 120 days, right? That's going to be announced this Friday. And so there are a lot of organizations that would have applied for money from that, but they couldn't get their act together that fast, and they couldn't spend it in 120 days. So they said, well, I'm going to wait for round 3. Round 3, my guess, I don't know this, but my guess is round 3 is going to be announced probably about the same time that the funds for round 2 get released. And it's probably going to be a similar quick turnaround. Maybe not as fast as the last one, but I bet it's going to be a quick turnaround. The difference will be, it's going to be the biggest chunk of it, right? So they have 80-something million dollars in that fund. The biggest chunk of the funds are about to get released. It's going to require more scrutiny. It's going to require more due diligence. But you're not going to have to spend it in 100 days. But if you've got money out of round 2, you can still go back and get money out of round 3, right? I understand J.J. Watt gave all their money away, but it wasn't open and transparent in the sense that people got to apply for that, right? No, that wasn't one we even got to hear about.
Focus on ours.
No, it's important because it's important to focus on it because your organizations that you're working with are wanting those dollars, right? So you should want to know about them. And those funds, my guess is, have probably been released to organizations that we in turn might still could partner with. The other mega fund is the one out of the Dale Foundation. if y'all know about that one being released, I haven't heard. And then the Qatar has a fund. I haven't heard anything about that. Have you, John? Have you? So, I mean, you think it's not relevant to us because it's beyond us. It's very relevant to us because I know I'm working on projects that are with organizations who are going to get money from those funds. And those are some exciting projects we can be a part of and add our funds to. So it's relevant in that way.
I agree. We're coming to an end. If you have additional questions, they're reachable. You've got my email address. It's rotary@cronzer.com. If you don't have it, it's because you're not getting your club runner email, which means you got a bad email. And yes, there are about 5% of y'all that are out. So rotary@cronzer.com. You get enough stuff from District Governor Bill Palco that you can reply to one of his emails and ask this, and he'll be glad to pass it on to Vicki and Rhonda for the things you need. And when you go to the new Harvey District grants, it has the contact information of Lisa Pauls and Barbara Franklin on there. Mr. Governor, anything?
You're off, I'm on. All right, you good? Time to leave. It's 20, 30 hours. We're going to be on time. I just want to say thank everyone for coming. Thank everyone that watched. Most importantly, thank you, Wally, for putting this together. We really put this all together so fast. And it's all been moving since Harvey hit so fast, the DAF and everything. Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Rhonda, Message Governor Rhonda. Thank you, Vicki, for everything you've done. Wayne, Patrick, everybody, everything that you all done is just fantastic and amazing. And Ryan Small, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you very much. And let's just continue to watch and do what we're doing, what the clubs are doing, what we're all doing as a district. It is truly making a difference, and let's continue to march. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Drive safe.